One second. Good evening, everyone.
Recording in progress.
And thank you very much for coming, for joining. We're going to continue now with the Nebesh's Hilf. We're still in the part of the Alter Rebbe's Nesius and the Alter Rebbe's experiences in this world, how he brought Chassidus to the world and so on and so forth. We want to dedicate this shir, first of all, I want to dedicate it to my mother-in-law, Aleha Shalom. Her name was Rebbe Rivka Bas Reb Moshe Chaim and Bas Sorabasio. And her last name was Eichenbaum. And then she married my father-in-law, Aleha Shalom, and she became Mrs. Rebbe Rivka Korf. She had a very special schus that she gave up on life's comforts to become a chassid of the Rebbe and a shliach of the Rebbe. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know, I'm going to be corrected by my family, Mr. Shem, but I believe that when she lived in Pittsburgh for a while, she actually wanted so much to go to the Chassidish school, to the Frumer school, and they couldn't afford it, and she, I believe, made a hunger strike. She went on a hunger strike in order for the parents to put her into the school. And Rabbi Posner, Olav Hashem, this is all from memory, so if I'm wrong, somebody's going to very soon correct me. You can't correct me through the phone, you're going to have to correct me through a messenger. Anyway, so Rabbi Posner, Shalom Posner, stuck up for her and took her into the school and so on and so forth. Again, I know she gave up on all her comforts that a regular girl had in those days, and she became a shlucha of the Rebbe, head shlucha of Florida, and Yehi Zichro Baruch, tonight, which is Chof Ches. Tomorrow's Chof Ches is her Yortzeit. Yep. Okay, we were discussing Alter Rebbe went to prison twice. Once was the story with Yitzhak Kislev, and the other one was Chanukah. The 5th Lichtel is when we celebrate, and we spoke about that one of those times. There's a few nuschois about when this Misnagdisher person made a deal with Alter Rebbe. He told Alter Rebbe he'll help him get out of prison on condition that Alter Rebbe goes to visit the 3 G'dolei HaMisnagdim, great Goyim of the Misnagdim. We spoke about it, but we didn't go in clear into the details. So Alter Rebbe gave a tkiyah skaf, in other words, he gave a promise that he will go visit him. 3 G'dolei HaMisnagdim. And that's where we stopped on Chof Aleph El, so we will continue now. And again, the Nusach, there's a few Nuschois, so I'm not 100% clear because the actually doesn't say, I don't think it says anywhere a date when and a year when the Alter Rebbe went. So we'll just say the way it was written down. After the Alter Rebbe was released, he went to visit those Rabbonim to be Mekayim his promise. The first place he traveled to was a Goin called Reb Moshe Chayfetz. And he was from a city called Tzavs. Tzaddik Aleph Vav Samach. This Moshe Chayfetz was old and a big goyin, a genius, a scholar, everything you can call him. And he was so great and so important, at least in his own eyes, but no, he wasn't a very important person, that he did not consider or respect any of the G'dolei Hador in his generations, from the Misnagdim even. He didn't care about anybody. The Hebrew word for it is lehichshiv. He didn't look at them as anybody important. He would not call a single one of the G'dolei Yisrael in those days by the name of Rabbi or Rav or something like that. He called them by their name. And not because he felt that it was an honorable thing to do. He didn't want to respect anyone because he was Takit very, very great. He was a Goyin Adar, this guy. When the Alter Rebbe came to him, he did not show any respect and chshivas to the Alter Rebbe. He didn't show him nothing, no covet. He right away started asking the Alter Rebbe shaylas and Torah. One of the shaylas and Gemara, and so one of the shaylas that he asked him was, how many times is Abaye and Rava mentioned in the whole Shas? Something similar to that. The Alter Rebbe answered him everything very accurately. And when Moshe Chayfetz saw the greatness of the Alter Rebbe in Torah, he decided to ask him a question that he had that nobody was able to answer him. And he asked him the following question, and before he asked him, he said to the Alter Rebbe, this question, when I was young, I asked it from many, many Goinim, and nobody was able to solve my problem. and whoever will solve my problem, I will call him Rabbi Alufi Yudoi. That's what Rabbi Moshe said. A guy who, there were Gedolei Yisrael in those days. There were people who became in the whole Shas, Bavli, Yerushalmi, but he didn't consider anyone anything special. Here he says to the Alter Rebbe, whoever solves my problem, I will call him Rabbi Alufi Yudoi. What's the question? So we'll try. This is going to be a little bit, there's only a story that has a little bit that you have to follow carefully and try to figure it out. It's a very geschmackig story, but it's a little bit hard to understand, but you will understand it once we talk about it with Hashem, the Meibash's Zilf, with Hashem's help. He said like this, in Medrash Rabbah, says the Moshe Chayfetz Alter Rebbe, in Parshas Kisiso, where it talks about the Egel, after the Egel Azov, and the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu Chas v'Chalila that he wants to get rid of the Yidden, and Moshe sticks up for the Yidden, Vayichal, and all that stuff. So the Medrash Rabbah says like this, that Moshe Rabbeinu said, in the Torah it says he was begging the Eibishter to forgive the Yidden after they made the golden calf, the Avodah Zarah. He said, Zocher la'Avram u'Yitzchak u'Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Eibishter, please remember the schus of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Yisrael. Says the Medrash, why did Moshe Rabbeinu, he's asking the Eibishter to forgive the Yidden. And he has different ways. He says Hashem should awaken his mercy, Hashem kel rachum, v'chulu v'chulu. Why is he mentioning the Shloisha Avos, says the Medrash, the three Avos? So Rav Ovin, one of the sages in the days of the Gemara or the Mishnah, says like this, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. The Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu, you want me to forgive the Yidden? You don't want me to chas v'sholom get rid of them? I'm going to ask you, just like I asked Avraham Avinu by Sodom v'Amorah, give me 10 tzaddikim, give me 10 Jewish righteous people, and I'll forgive the Yidden. That's what the Eibishter is asking you. So if you give me 10 tzaddikim, I'm not going to be mechala, I'm not going to destroy them. So Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Eibishter these words, and that's the Medrash. Omar, so that Moshe said, Rebbeinu Olam, creator of the world, Ani ma'amid lecha, I'll show you 10 tzaddikim. I'll present you with 10 tzaddikim. Harei ani ve'Aaron ve'Elazar v'Isamar. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't sin. He's a tzaddik. It's me, my brother Aaron is 2, Elazar and Isamar is 4, Pinchas is 5, Yeshua ben Nun is 6, and Kalev is 7. Kalev ben Yefunah, these were all tzaddikim who tried to stop the Yidden from the Egel and so on. So the Eibishter says, you gave me 7. You told me you're presenting me with 10. There's only 7. So where are the 3 that you still owe me? So the Moshe Rabbeinu, says the Medrash, said these words. It's all from the Medrash. Rebbeinu Olam, creator of the world. That's what Moshe asked him. Chaim heim hamesim? Are those who passed away alive still? So the Eibishter said, Hen, yes. All the tzaddikim don't pass, they don't die. They pass away from the world, you don't see them, but they're alive. That's what the Eibishter told them. So Moshe said back, Im Chaim Heim HaMeisim. If those who passed away or those who are dead are really alive, then Zechor Avram Yitzchak Yisrael. You want me to present you with 3 more tzaddikim, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Here's 10 tzaddikim, right? Mm-hmm. Very good. Problem is that in another parsha in Chumash and in another medrash, Parshas Ekev, the medrash says a total different thing. That's what this Moshe Chayfetz is telling the Alter Rebbe. He's attacking, he's telling the Alter Rebbe, I have a question that I always asked people and nobody was able to answer me. If anybody answers me the question, I will call him my Rebbe, my teacher, v'chulu v'chulu. What is the problem? There's another medrash in Parshas Ekev, same story. And over there, it says like this, that the Eibishter asked Moshe Rabbeinu, present me with 80 tzaddikim. 80 tzaddikim. And Moshe gave him 77 tzaddikim. Who are the 77? The 70 elders of every tribe, the Shivim Zekanim, and him, and Aaron, and Pinchas, and Elazar, and Isamar, and Kalev, and Yeshua, another 7. The Eibishter asked for 80. The Eibishter said, you gave me 77, what's another 3? So Moshe said, Zechor Avram Yitzchak Yisrael, remember their merit, And he asked him the same question. He said, are they alive? And the Eibishter said, yes, they're alive. Then I present you the other three tzaddikim, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. This is a contradiction. Here it says that Abish is asking for 10, and here he's asking for 70, for 80. That's what he can't understand. And nobody was able to explain it to him. So Alter Rebbe tells him very straight off his sleeve, as they say. Alter Rebbe answers him, oh, this is just a very simple thing. This is connected to a machlokes, to an argument, a difference of opinion of sages, Tanoim, in the Talmud Bavli. Can you imagine a guy comes in to a doctor who knows all the medicines and says, he doesn't understand some. This is no problem. The guy was a bookie. He knew the entire Talmud by heart, this guy. He was a genius. And Alter Rebbe off the bat tells him, oh, this story with the two Midrashim is connected to another argument of sages in the Gemara and Talmud Bavli. This guy almost lost it. Rabbi Chayfetz was not a bookie. He says, bookie lahafli. He was in an amazing way. He was clear in every word in the Talmud. And he couldn't remember such a thing. Where is there such a machlokes in the Gemara? Over here he asked him for 80, for 80 tzaddikim, and here he asked for 10. So Alter Rebbe told him, it's a Gemara in Huriyos. Over there, it's talking about a very interesting mitzvah that the Eibishter gave to the Yid. That if the Chachomim, the Bezdin and the Kohol, all the Jewish people make a mistake on a grand level, where they make all a big mistake and they tell the Yid, you're allowed to do this or that, the other. But it's Par Helem, it's called in the Gemara, Par Helem Dover Shel Tzibur, where the whole community made the same mistake, not just one individual. One individual makes a mistake, it doesn't have Avera, he does tshuva and he brings a carbon, chatas, whatever it is. But by a whole community, the Eibishter gives them a special carbon that they have to bring, and they're forgiven. So over there, the Gemara has an argument. What does it mean, a tzibur? What does it mean the whole community makes a mistake? Is each tribe from the Jewish tribes, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, is each tribe called a kohol, a whole community, and each tribe makes a mistake, it's already enough to bring this carbon? Or does it mean that the entire Jewish nation, all 12 tribes, have to make the mistake? That's what the Gemara discusses over there. What's considered a kohol? Kohol means the community made a mistake. Is the community all of the Jews, or is the community just each tribe for itself? So each tribe has a separate law. So the Medrash that says that the Eibishter asked for 10 tzaddikim, that Medrash goes according to the sages. There's an argument between the sages. One sage says each Shevet is a separate community, and the Eibishter is talking about that community. And one sage says, no, all the Jews together. So the Medrash that says Moshe Rabbeinu, that the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu, give me 10 tzaddikim, they go according to the sage that no, each Shevet is not a whole community. Each Shevet is just a 12th of a community. The community is all the Jews together. So the Eibishter tells him, I need 10 tzaddikim. Like in Sdoim, 10 tzaddikim will save everyone. Because the whole community is going to be saved by the 10. So Moshe gives him 7, and the Eibishter says, I need 3 more, and he says, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The other Medrash that the Eibishter says, I want 80, is because every tribe is another community. Take away Shevet Levi. Levi didn't do the Egel Azov. So there's only how many tribes left? 11?
12. That's right.
Levi's gone. No, Menashe Ephraim is considered Yosef. It's one Shevet.
Really?
In this case. So Shevet Levi is gone. So there's 11 Shvatim left.
That's why you
How much do you need for each Shevet?
7.
So you need 7 for each Shevet plus those 3. And together, 7 times 11 is how much? How much is 11 times 7?
44.
No, that's impossible.
77.
Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. So the Eibishter said, I want 80 for all of them. I want 80 for all of them, which will come out to be for the whole community, for all the communities. And Moshe says, I have 77. And with each one of them, with each Shevet, he said 77. I have 7 for each Shevet, or whatever it is, and 3 more, which is Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So this is where the Medrash has this opinion. One Medrash goes according to the opinion that each Shevet is a tribe, a community, and the other one says no. When this Moshe Chayfetz heard this explanation, he went nuts. He right away started honoring the Alter Rebbe fully. Never did it to anybody in the world. He ran and got a chair. You imagine this guy was a genius and very old, Nobody ever was called rabbi by him. The greatest Misnagd Gedolim. He ran and brought a chair and he put it down and said to the Alter Rebbe, please, your honor, sit down. And he screamed to his Rebbitzin. Rebbitzin, he said, please make prepare a good verbeisen, a good, what is it called, kibud, because we have a very important guest, Reb Shneir Harav, Reb Shneir Zalman, he called him. This was the first guy he visited from the Gedela Misnagd. By the way, according to what I read, these three Misnagdim, after they were visited, and the Misnagdim found out about it, the regular folks, how they respected Alter Rebbe. They didn't expect this to happen, because they were always hearing stories about Alter Rebbe. Who knows if he knows how to learn? So after that, it had a tremendous effect in the Misnagdish community for people to want to become students and followers of the Alter Rebbe. From there, the Alter Rebbe traveled to the city of Shklov, famous city in those days. And who was the genius and the goin and the great scholar that he had to visit was a Jew called Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin. I don't know if the Zeitlins from today come from them or not, but I heard some say yes, some say no. This Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin was a great goin, and he also did not respect the Alter Rebbe. He didn't give him any respect, any special respect. He just started asking him questions. And Alter Rebbe answered him everything correctly. The Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin also asked Alter Rebbe something about Chassidus. He says, in Chassidus, you teach the people that the Torah, limud Torah, learning Torah can't be just Yira has to be ba'ava and Yira. If you don't have Ava means love to Hashem and awe of Hashem, fear of Hashem. If not, it doesn't go. The Torah teaching, the Torah learning that you learn, which is holy, but it doesn't go up l'mayla. It doesn't ascend to where it's supposed to. The sparks of holiness. Where do you get that? And the Alter Rebbe told him it's a beferish Zohar. It's from Zohar. So this Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin said we cannot paskin shailas from Kabbalah. Shailas have to paskin from Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, and so on. And Alter Rebbe told him, brought him a Gemara from a Masechta Pesachim, and he said it clearly says there, Ki godel at Shemayim chasdecho and ma'al Shemayim. Over there the Gemara says that it depends how you learn Torah. If you learn Torah Lishma, it goes up to the highest level. If you don't learn Torah Lishma, for the sake of Torah, which is only through Ava and Yira, then it doesn't go up to that high level. So it's a clear Gemara, and the people didn't notice these Gemaras. They didn't notice the connection. Alter Rebbe showed them the connection. So Rabbi Yeshua became very excited, and the Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin asked Alter Rebbe, what's with limud Torah? Because the rumor was always that the Chassidim dropped studying of Torah. They go to the Rebbe, they have miracles, but what's with limud Torah? So the Alter Rebbe answered him, all of our balabatim, meaning all the people, Hasidic followers, have kviyas itim l'Torah. They have set times for learning Torah. So Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin, what's the novel idea of Chassidus? What's the chidush? By the Misnagdim also, all the balabatim, everybody learns Torah. Simple Jews even learn Torah, by them. So the Alter Rebbe said, what our chidush is, the chidush of Chassidus, you'll find out over the years, you'll see the chidush of Chassidus. But about kviyas itim, by the regular people, kviyas itim meaning times for learning was a set up time. By the Chassidim, I demand, and that's how the Chassidim do it, is that the set up time is not just a time on the watch, but it's ingrained in their neshama. That means that it's so Kviyas benefesh. It's so serious that there's no way, you can never stray from that type of thing. Another thing that happened by Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin, after he asked Alter Rebbe questions, is that Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin was a wealthy person. And he had a big cellar full of collections of barrels of wine and bottles of wine and all kinds of drinks. Like what do they call that drink that's not really a guffin? From the fruits.
What's that?
It is, I forgot the bottles from the fruit wines.
Just
Mashkos, yeah. That's right. So this Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin had a servant in his house, a servant who was a goy. And this goy, over the years, learned how to speak Yiddish. But his Yiddish was so perfect that he spoke like a regular Jewish person. And the Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin said to this goy, bring a bottle of wine, go bring a bottle of wine from the cellar to be mechabed this Yid. Rabbi Yeshua Zeitlin wanted to test the Alter Rebbe's holiness. This is besides his learning, he wants to see how holy he is. And I heard this from Rabbi Majeski. Majeski says that Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin, I never heard it before, but it makes sense. Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin didn't chas v'sholom want to be machshel, the Alter Rebbe. He did not want the Alter Rebbe to chas v'sholom drink wine that the guy touched. He was going to get rid of it or give it to the guy. He just wanted to test Alter Rebbe, and the last second, if God forbid, he'll stop him. That's what he thought. The guy brought up the bottle. He gave a cup to the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe took the cup in his hand and he started making a bracha. Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin never heard someone make a bracha like that. The Alter Rebbe from the first word Baruch Atah was concentrating, and his I can't even describe. How can I describe it? His neshama became like bizgalos, like he made a bracha with the concentration, and the connection to the Eibishter was something so special. Rabbi Shua never heard a bracha with such dveikus, such connection to the Eibishter, and he became confused. Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin. He was going to stop the Alter Rebbe. That was it. Now he can't. He was his mind. He was like flabbergasted. And he couldn't say a word, Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin. He was just standing there in awe. And Alter Rebbe finished off the bracha, Shahakol nihiyo b'dvarei. And he drank, and then he said to the Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin, the guy made a mistake. And he brought up a type of drink that's shahakol, which is mead. Yeah, sheikh or whatever it was. But, said the Alter Rebbe to him, I'd like to point out to you that since the guy was in the cellar by himself, he was in the cellar, there's a shaila on all the wine. So this Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin,
never thought of that before.
Maybe he never sent the guy. He just got too excited. I don't know. That's what it says in the Likutei Diburim from the Frierdiker Rebbe. And Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin then announced and said, on you is written the famous pasuk in Mishlei, Loi Ye'una la tzaddik kol oven. A tzaddik, a true tzaddik, a person can always make a mistake. There's a shoygiga, but a true tzaddik, the Eibishter protects him from having even a mistake. Nothing, in no aveira chas v'shalom can come to him. That's what Rabbi Shua Tzeitlin said. From Shklov, the Alter Rebbe traveled to Amtsislav, to a great Goin called Rabbi Yoel. This Rabbi Yoel, unlike the other two, stood up on his feet when the Alter Rebbe walked in and said, Shalom Aleichem Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe said, how am I your Rebbe? These guys weren't joking, we meant it serious. So Rabbi Yoel said, when I was very young, and the Alter Rebbe was also very young, I was in Vitebsk. The Alter Rebbe was married already at 15 years old, and he was living in Vitebsk by his in-laws, who were called Segal. And over there, Alter Rebbe gave shiurim, and he had talmidim, and everyone enjoyed his genius and the way he would teach Torah. So said Rabbi Yoel, he's from Amtsislav, this third great genius, that Alter Rebbe, when I was in Vitebsk, I once had a question in the Gemara and Rashi and Tosfos, and I asked you, and you told me the Pirush. You explained it to me. So that's why I say Rebbe, because he taught me something. So Alter Rebbe said to him right away, he says, if that's the case, if I'm your Rebbe, why didn't you come to release me from prison? There's a halacha that if you have a student has to try to release his Rebbe, pay money, do whatever you can to help you, to save your Rebbe. It says in the Gemara, Chayiv Odom Lifdois Rabbi. So the Rabbi Yoel answered Alter Rebbe, trust me, he says, believe me, if it was something that was only money, I would never hold back from releasing you. Seemingly he couldn't, for whatever reason. They sat and talked, and Alter Rebbe left with great, great respect and great honor. The story of Alter Rebbe's bracha reminds me, unfortunately I don't remember any of the names, but there was a certain chassid from, I think it was the Chains, from the Chain family, who they spoke a shidduch for his daughter, I think, or his son, with the daughter or son from a great Misnagd Gadol. But it was a real Gadol, it was a real Choshev Yid. And so he sent one of his daughters to go and check out if the guy's a Yerushalayim, Misnagd Gadol. And she came back to her father or to her brother or sibling, I don't remember the details, but this was her answer. She said, our father's Asher Yotzar has more kavanah than this guy's Kriyas Shema Shel Amito. Who?
You want to become a husband with Chaim Britzker's daughter.
Okay, there you go. Thank you so much for the names. I just couldn't remember it. Anyway, no, I'm saying Alter Rebbe spoke a set of bracha that this godel, this goin, became totally confused. Okay, so now we're getting closer. We spoke a lot of the things. The truth is, the stories of the Alter Rebbe's lifetime with his chassidim is really a tremendous amount. It's like, I told you, like Tanakh. And we would sit here for another 6 months. Maybe we should do that. One day we'll come back to it. But I want to just continue. So we're getting closer to the Alter Rebbe's last years of his being in this world officially, that we can see. And we will go into that in more detail. What happened to the Alter Rebbe in the last year and weeks and days. But we have to first say one story of the Alter Rebbe that happened approximately a few years before the Alter Rebbe was a tzaddik, and the story carried on into the next Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe's son. So I thought it's like almost like a link in the chain that connects both Rebbes. So maybe that's why I want to say it. Or, I don't know. It's just a very, very special story that the Frierdiker Rebbe says, and they wrote it into a sefer of Chassidus, which is called Poikeach Ivrim from the Mittler Rebbe. The Mittler Rebbe spoke Maimorim of Chassidus that were very deep. And then he wrote a few contrasim, a few booklets of Chassidic Maimorim, Chassidic teachings for specific Chassidim. One of them was Rabbi Kusil Lepler, we know, who the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote for him a kuntus of Maimorim. And another one is this book here, Poikeach Ivrim. Poikeach Ivrim in Hebrew means he opens up the blind to the person's eyes. This, the Mittler Rebbe wrote for one of his Chassidim that we're going to talk about in this story. And it also gives us a description. This story brings to life, only the way the Frierdiker Rebbe can do that, brings to life what a chassid was in the Alter Rebbe's days, and brings to life so many things about Yiddishkeit in those days that everyone can learn lessons from. So the Frierdiker Rebbe starts his story and he says, at a certain year, he was pretty young then. What year was this? I do not remember. It does say somewhere here. I'm sorry. So it was a certain year that the Frierdiker Rebbe was still young, and he was in Lubavitch. The Rebbe was the Rebbe Rashab, his father at that time. And there was a certain Yid who came to Lubavitch, to the Rebbe Rashab. This Yid's name was Abba Zelig. Abba Zelig from the city of Beshenkovich, most probably. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I think so. This Abba Zelig, and I'm gonna try to not say every single word, but I don't like to cut corners on this story because this is something very special. This Abba Zelig was an older chassid, and the Rebbe Rashab was Makarim. He was gave him a lot of kiruvim. He was very close to him. One of the reasons was because who Abba Zelig's father was. Abba Zelig's father was called Rabbi Yosef. And this Rabbi Yosef lived in the times of the Alter Rebbe, as we're going to see soon, and the Mittler Rebbe, and the Tzemach Tzedek. And he was very old, and still he would go to Lubavitch by foot. He says, in Lubavitch, I go by Lubavitch, you don't travel with a horse and buggy. In Lubavitch, you go on by foot. This old man, Rabbi Yosef, who Abba Zelig is his son, we're going to talk about some names, and we'll try slowly to bring out this picture so we will not get too mixed up. So this Rabbi Yosef, Abba Zelig's father, who was in the days of the Tzemach Tzedek, was very, very old, says the Frierdiker Rebbe. And like I told you, the Tzemach Tzedek and the Tzemach Tzedek was very close with him, and the Mittler Rebbe. And he would, for 10 to 12 years, or as an old Yid, he would go to Lubavitch by foot. And he was nostalgic. He passed away in Tov Reish Hey. Don't know how old he was. He was a clear mind when he passed away, and he told his friends, the Hasidim, that after midnight he's going to be by the Alter Rebbe, I believe, in his holy chamber in Gan Eden. And he begged his friends, like many other Hasidim did, that night, after they finished Tikkun Chatzos, they should take l'chaim, mashke, and dance covered his simcha, that he's with the Rebbe in Gan Eden. This is a guy who had a clear mind, wasn't afraid of anything, So my father, says the Frierdiker Rebbe, my father, the Rebbe Rashab, told me, go call the old chassid of Abba Zelig, who's that Rabbi Yosef who passed away, and a very clear mind. Go call him, or go over to him and ask him to please tell you the story of the history of his father, Rabbi Yosef the Balagola of Beshenkovich. Beshenkovich was a Chassidish city, and they called him Rabbi Yosef the Balagola. Interesting.
The wagon driver.
Listen, we'll find out soon. What a wagon driver! But it's an amazing story. This, imagine that the Frierdiker Rebbe found this so important that even though this is a sefer of Chassidus and Chassidus about doing tshuva, the whole beginning of the book is the story of Rabbi Yosef the Balagola. That the Frierdiker Rebbe found that this is important to put it into the sefer. So he writes like this: call Abba Zelik, says the Rebbe Rashab to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and ask him to tell you the story of his father. When I asked Abba Zelik to tell me the story of his father, he said, on a condition. He says to the Frierdiker Rebbe, who's a young man, first you have to chazer for me, review for me, a mimer from your father, the Rebbe Rashab. And so I did that, says the Frierdiker Rebbe. And then he told me the story of his father. What's the story? And the Rebbe Rashab was very, very happy that he listened to the whole story. And the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote down word for word what this guy told me. Huh? No, we'll stop when we went in 10 minutes. I'm going to stop in the middle. There's nothing to do. This is too long of a story to tell in one time or two times. He says, what's the story? And he starts telling him, Abba Zelik tells him like this. In the city of Beshenkovich, which was a very Jewish city, Misnagd, Chassidim, in the city of Beshenkovich, years before, there was a certain Yid, Rebbe Ephraim Zalman was his name. Nothing to do with the story, it's just like an introduction to the story. This Rebbe Ephraim Zalman was a scholar, a Lamdan, very learned, famous in the entire county of Beshenkovich. And he used to write letters of questions in Torah and halacha to different Gedolei Yisrael, and they used to answer him because he was famous. When the Alter Rebbe became revealed, in other words, people found out that the Alter Rebbe is a tremendous genius in Nigla, not talking about Chassidus, and that the Alter Rebbe can explain something in a very calm and collected way, in such a way where the questions just fall off. The Alter Rebbe had a very special way to not go deep into something, but just to explain it so clearly that people loved learning from the Alter Rebbe. So when they found out about the Alter Rebbe, he was called the Ilui of Liozne, the Alter Rebbe, the genius of Liozne. And the Alter Rebbe was only 15 years old at that time. So this Rebbe Ephraim Zalman went to the rich man in Vitebsk, who's now the Alter Rebbe's father-in-law, whose name was Rabbi Yehuda Leib Segal, a very, very big millionaire who dealt with loads of Goyish landowners. So this is Ephraim Zalman, okay, from Beshenkovich. He's not a part of the story, he's just an introduction. He went to the Alter Rebbe, to Segal's house, to the rich man's house, to talk to the Alter Rebbe, a 15-year-old young man, to talk to him in learning. And when he came, he became so impressed, he was mind-boggled from the tremendous knowledge of the Alter Rebbe and how deep he knows everything in Torah. When he came home, Rebbe Ephraim Zalman, to Beshenkovich, he was a broken-hearted person, sad, depressed, because
In the wrong place.
no, he saw that this Eli, this 15-year-old from Yozne, is greater and much more knowledgeable than he is, and much deeper in everything. And he held of himself as the greatest going. He was very depressed. And for a month, Rabbi Ephraim Zalman was so disoriented from talking to the Alter Rebbe, he couldn't concentrate on his learning, like he always did, like he did until now. Finally, he found over there an older Misnagd Shegudel, who was called Rabbi Avrom Zev the Blind. He was a blind person, a genius that knew the whole Gemara by heart, the whole Torah by heart. And he went and talked to him, and he poured out his heart. He said, I went there, and a 15-year-old beat me in everything. How could that be? And Rabbi Avrom Zev, the blind one, calmed him down and said, listen, when it comes to Bekius, to the broad knowledge of everything, you are only second to the Vilna Goyim. That's how they used to encourage each other, by giving them praise and so on and so, lifting them up. And only then did he get back to himself and was able to go back to his learning like before. But that's not the end of the story. This Rabbi Avram Zev, the blind one, knew the whole Shas, that means the whole entire, all these volumes of Gemara, with Rashi, with Tosfos, by heart. You can say it like we say Ashrei or Moedani. He knew it all by heart. And he did raise a lot of very great students that were all geniuses. One student of this Rabbi Avram Zev the blind was a Yid called Rabbi Yosef. This Rabbi Yosef was a Yirah Shamayim, and he was also very talented and knew how to learn very, very well. This Rabbi Yosef, a student of Rabbi Avram Zev, not the Ephraim Zalman. Ephraim Zalman and Avram Zev are both older Geonim in Beshenkovich. And this Rabbi Yosef became 18 years old. He got married with the daughter of a villager that was in a village nearby Beshenkovich. And over there, this Rabbi Yosef sat, his father-in-law offered him everything, support, and he sat there for 15 years learning Torah in the village near Beshenkovich. One day, a guest came by, a wanderer, a traveler came by, and it was a big Talmud Chacham. He came by that village near Beshenkovich. And Rabbi Yosef, and he stayed in this Rabbi Yosef's in-law's house or whatever, and Rabbi Yosef became so happy that Talmud Chacham came by because Rabbi Yosef knew how to learn. And he spoke to him in learning and so on and so forth, and it was Cheshvan time, like now. And in those days, it was the rain season started and all the roads were muddy. So this Rabbi Yosef, who was a Talmud of Avram Zev, the blind one, begged the guests that came by, stay here by us in the house till the weather clears up and it becomes drier and it's easier to travel. And he enjoyed so much to learn with him and to talk with him and learning. One day, he heard from this wanderer, this traveler, he was so impressed with the traveler's learning, and the traveler tells him that most of my learning I got from the great Goin, the Magid of Lozner. That's what they called Alter Rebbe. So this guy said, who's this Magid of Lozner? And he decided when he goes back to Beshenkovich, this is Rabbi Yosef, when he's going to go into town, to Walmart, to go shopping or whatever, he's going to find out from some knowledgeable people, where is the city called Lozner? He didn't even know where it was. And he wants to go to meet this Magid of Lozner and hear from him Chidush Torah. He was so enthused.
How old is the Alter Rebbe now?
No, he's older now. Because Avram Zev was his teacher, was Rabbi Yosef's teacher. So Alter Rebbe is already not officially Rebbe maybe, but he moved to Lozner, I guess, back from Vitebsk, because in Vitebsk they weren't, in-laws weren't very happy with him. Anyway, 3 years went by since he met this traveler, this Rabbi Yosef, and he still didn't find in himself to make his decision to go to Lozner. But one day, he was in Beshenkovich, and this Ephraim Zalman, the original guy I told you about, who was depressed because he saw how great Alter Rebbe was making a shir. He was giving a shir in Beshenkovich in the shul, from the Bima shul. And he's giving a shir for the Gedolei HaTorah in a very deep subject in the Gemara. And then in the middle of his speech, he says like this, in 14 years, it's already 14 years since I met the genius of Lozner in his father-in-law's house in Vitebsk. And I spoke to him in Divrei Torah. And he was able to solve for me some very deep questions against the Rambam from the Ravid. And our sages tell us that when you say over a Dvar Torah, in the name of the one who taught it to you, you bring the Geula to the world. So he gave over everything that he heard from the Alter Rebbe about the Rambam and the Ravid, and he showed to the Gedolei Yisrael over there in Beshenkovich how great the knowledge of the Alter Rebbe is. This time, Rabbi Yosef was there. He heard it from Ephraim Zalman, the original guy. So that's it. He's going to Lozner. He went to Lozner. He got there in the year Tov Kuf Lamed Zayin. The Alter Rebbe wasn't yet officially, maybe he was already officially Rebbe. But remember, this is Lamed Zayin, then comes Mem Zayin, then comes Nun Zayin. It says 20 years before the Alter Rebbe printed, almost 20 years before the Alter Rebbe printed the Tanya and was arrested. Nun Zayin. Samach, and it's almost 40 years before the Alter Rebbe was installed. So this Rabbi Yosef went to Lozner, and he became a chassid of the Alter Rebbe and a follower of the Alter Rebbe. And he was learning from the Alter Rebbe. Then he went back home. For a year he sat by the Alter Rebbe, he went back home, and he started living his life according to the teachings of the Alter Rebbe. Learning and learning chassidus and davening b'avodah and everything. And so went by 20 more years on this Rabbi Yosef in Beshenkovich. He was a London, he was a tremendous person. And every 2 to 3 years, says the Frierdiker Rebbe, this is what he heard from his son, Rabbi Yosef's son, Rabbi Abba Zelig. in Lubavitch. Every 2 to 3 years, he used to travel to the Alter Rebbe in Shmos Eidim. He was a chassid Alter Rebbe. In the year Tov Kuf Samach Aleph, this is the second time the Alter Rebbe goes to prison. This is after the Tanya was printed and after the Yitas Kislev. Tov Kuf Samach Aleph, this man, Rabbi Yosef, you know what, maybe I'll stop here. This is just the introduction to this. No, I can't because my